Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and D&D enthusiasts in general. Welcome to the Saturday morning D&D show. I am Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my co-host, Sir Lucian. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody.
And we have special guest Questing Beast, which I just realized where I'm recording this right now, and I have your name as Matt Colville because I forgot to change it.
So
I'll take it. You can
this
call me
is
Matt,
a
that's fine.
professional
Yeah, we're super professional.
broadcast system.
So let's
We've got a
change
couple of
that.
viewers already in there while you're doing that. We got Wandering Disciple and Cyberwolf have joined back up. They keep showing up on Saturday mornings, especially Cyberwolf. See him all the time. Him or her or they. No discrimination here.
There we go. Now it's fixed. So those wonderful. Maybe I'll edit that out. We'll say hello. No, we'll start
Starting
again.
over.
But anyway, we have Questing Beast with us here, Mr. Ben, and he runs a channel over on YouTube called Questing Beast. Tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel, Ben.
So the YouTube channel is focused on map making tutorials and on reviews of old school role-playing games. It's mostly what I focus on.
That's awesome. And specifically like OSR stuff, correct?
Yeah. So not old books, but new stuff for old systems.
Right. So what is OSR for those of us, and myself included, who don't really understand it or know what it is?
Yeah. So I keep running into people who don't know what OSR is, and I use the term all the time. So I'm probably confusing a lot of people.
Oh, no, of course not.
OSR just stands for old school. The R could stand for lots of things. Revolution, Renaissance, usually Renaissance. It refers to the movement within D&D to look at older rule sets like BX D&D or AD&D or even original D&D and write new content for it or update those systems or rewrite the systems with your house rules and just build more material for that.
Okay, that's really awesome. So sorry, just to summarize, taking like an older system, but this, because that's free now, or is that open source? They're able to like create new content for it. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. Yeah. Ever since third edition, open license, they've been able to take all of the old rules, and there's a lot of what's called retro clones now, where they take old rule sets and they rewrite them, but they clarify them to make them easier to read. Because frankly, a lot of the old rule sets are very difficult to read. They're just not well organized, not well explained. So they fix that. They streamline the rules so that people can easily write new content for them.
Do you have a favorite system or anything? Like from
There's
this
lots of
OSR?
When I'm playing something that's like fairly traditionally D&D, I usually either do BX D&D version by Moldvay, or I do Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which is sort of an updated version of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been interesting too, because that whole revolution's kind of started in the last 3 years. It's gotten bigger. Like I remember seeing they had just like a smaller room. There were a lot of people who were playing it, but there's more and more rooms like at Gen Con now that are totally dedicated to just OSR, and there's hundreds of people in there. So it's like, I think the word Renaissance is a great word for it, because I think a lot of people are jumping back to it to get back into that old school style of gaming. It was a good style of gaming to play. Those type of games, that sword and sorcery, low magic rule sets, dangerous rule sets too.
That is a big focus. Yeah. Like you start out, if you're a wizard, you might start out with 1 hit point and 1 spell. Yeah. And it's like, you could just die. So you play very differently. It's more like a cross between Indiana Jones and like survival horror in terms of the tone, because everything is so deadly. You play very carefully, you play very tactically.
Is Dungeon Crawl Classics considered OSR stuff?
Yeah. I should point out that in the last 5 or 6 years, there's really been a shift. People aren't making retro clones so much anymore. That work has already been done. Those rules are easily available. People are now taking the style and the DM principles from old school role playing, and they're developing new games based on those principles. So Dungeon Crawl Classics is an example of that. It's very recognizably D&D, but it has lots of rule innovations in it. And you even see stuff like Into the Odd is a good example, where it's like a super tight set where you only have like 3 stats and there's no to hit rolls. You just automatically do damage. So it takes the OSR style and shrinks it down to something even faster and more deadly. So you have people going in both directions.
What other principles where, like you mentioned, that they're taking kind of principles or like concepts or ideas from it. What other ideas are they taking from these older? Like, to me, being a dungeon master is being a dungeon master no matter what system you're playing. So what is it that's like key for those if they're not taking like game mechanics?
OSR can refer to the rule set, or it can refer to the style of play. So
Oh,
the
okay.
style of play generally refers to, I mean, no one completely agrees on this because there isn't like one definition of this, which is fine because everyone plays it slightly differently. But generally it involves things like high lethality. So you have to be very careful, and every time you get into a fight, you could actually die. Into a fight is much more, should we actually do this?
Mm-hmm.
It tends to revolve around very player-led campaigns, which means XP for gold, usually.
Okay.
So like treasure is out there in the world, and players on their own plan how they're going to get it and what risks they're going to take. And the GM is more reactive. So going along with that, you have a lot of open worlds and a lot of sandbox style play. A lot of emphasis on player choices making a really big difference, and on like things like random tables. So the GM is more of a referee than a storyteller. He sets up the world. He has a lot of interesting hooks and interesting things going on, and then steps back and lets the players decide what they're going to do.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and that even kind of mentions a little. You just put a video out last night that was really good. I was watching it late, so I was about to go to bed, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" He just put a video out, and he talked about XP for gold, which was kind of a way to give XP back in the day, and even was kind of advocating a little bit, maybe thinking about doing it even now in the games that you're in now, because it might be a way to, it helps change the focus of your players, and maybe, or at least focus them on a different aspect of the game versus, hey, I need to kill another troll because that's going to get me to level 3 because that'll be 450 XP or whatever it is, versus, wait a minute, if we just go and steal this 500 gold piece chest and we can get away with it, we've just got 500 XP for our character. So it was really, if you haven't seen that video he put out last night, it was really good about, maybe thinking about using the XP to gold as a reward, as one of the ones, because he mentions in the video, and I'm sure he'll talk about it a little bit here, that, there's milestone, there's, monster XP, gold for XP. There's a lot of different versions out there, and it's just, I always like how your channel gives people a lot of options to bring into their games, little pieces. You don't have to do everything you say. Just if you like this piece, grab it and put it in your game. If you like this piece, grab it and put it in your game. So it's really good for that if you check his channel out.
A big focus in the OSR. People sometimes call the OSR DIY D&D. It's just another name for basically the same thing, where the focus is really on you building your own world. But there are a huge number of really good OSR books out there, but most of them people don't run as is. They're intentionally very modular. You can just grab bits and pieces. You can grab monsters, spells, like little dungeons, adventures, NPCs. And because they're all more or less based on the same rule set, they're all very compatible with each other. So you can just assemble your own stuff through the pieces that you like.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What made you fall in love with OSR and like indie RPGs and stuff? Like, why not? This might be a dumb question, but like, why not just play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons?
So I started out playing Pathfinder about 5 years ago or so, and then we moved into 5th edition. And I like 5th edition better. I just like games that are a lot faster and get to the interesting decisions much more quickly. And in a lot of the in Pathfinder and 5th edition, combat takes a long time. It usually doesn't in OSR games because it's so deadly. So it's if you've made a good decision or not very quickly when a fight starts. Like, should I have actually done this or should I have run?
Right.
And just all the resolution mechanics are much quicker. You can typically, once you get used to OSR mechanics, you can make a character in 5-10 minutes. And they slowly grow into more complex characters over the course of the campaign, rather than starting as complicated. So a lot of people talk about OSR characters as being the backstory of a 5th edition character.
Oh, that's very interesting.
You grow into a hero rather than starting as a hero. So it's kind of like an origin story. I really like that about it.
Yeah, that was, I played an online stream of Dungeon Crawl Classics, and we each made like 6 characters, I think, because we knew that they were going to die. And it's amazing how attached I got to those characters. Like I was
or the
no,
ones that
like
survive, right?
yeah, because you really are rooting for them to survive. Because and then also I was hoping, like, it was a one shot, but I'm like, I really wish we would kept playing, because now that I have this one guy that survived, I really want to see where he can go. Like, what is he going to be now that he's level 1? You know?
It was fairly common, from what I understand, back in the day, to not play with just one character. Like you would roll up a whole bunch of different characters. You'd only play one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you went to someone else's house and played in their campaign, yeah, I pull out this other character that I made a while back. You play with him for a while, and you switch back and forth between different characters that you played. It wasn't that like I am this one character and I'm totally dedicated to just them. You had kind of a stable of characters, and if one died off, that was sad because maybe you were attached to him, but not a big deal. I have this other character over here too. So
that's very cool. Now I noticed too that on your channel is really nice is that you also kind of review a lot of third-party lore or setting type material, which is if you're looking for something that's not just the standard Pathfinder's world, D&D's world, Forgotten Realms, which is pushed really big right now for the last couple of years, or what is Pathfinder's was Golarion, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that was their big world. But you're really kind of showcasing some of the really other, I hadn't even heard of them, but they are fantastic, and it's so good to hear about them. Where are you finding these? How are you stumbling upon them? Are they being sent by like viewers of yours, or are you have this perfect bookstore that has all that stuff in it?
No, I mostly hear about that stuff through Google Plus, which is where most of the OSR writers just congregate. There's a big RPG community in general on Google Plus for some reason. No one else uses it. Apparently, it's just us.
No, it's true.
It's really great for that. So over the last couple of years, I've just made contact with most of these people, and I'm in conversations with them. So I hear about stuff that they make. So it was one of the big reasons why I got into the OSR was the ridiculously high quality that people are putting out, not just rule sets, but monster manuals and adventures and settings of just ridiculously high quality, like objectively better than stuff Wizards of the Coast is putting out, both in terms of like art design, in terms of book construction quality, in terms of sheer amount of density of good information. And like they're often put up by one or two people, and I was just blown away by how good they were.
Yeah, some of them. I mean,
totally unknown.
Jordan bought like a couple of them.
Yeah, I bought Hot Springs Island and Vornheim because of your videos specifically. This was before we knew each other, I think before we were friends, and I was watching your channel. And I was just like, man, like what is like this Vornheim thing solved like a dozen problems that I had with my characters. And rather than, and I was running in the Forgotten Realms, but rather than trying to put them in the city of Waterdeep and actually like learn the city of Waterdeep, I used the Vornheim mechanics to create a city, which was really cool and really like useful and simple, and then made it feel fleshed out, which was really impressive to my players. So
yeah, and the book's like 64 pages long. It's like this tiny little book, but every single page is just hyper dense with information, and all of the information is like immediately usable and will make your game better.
Yeah.
Like there's no like just random fluff in it, and that's something that's a pattern throughout a lot of the OSR stuff.
So you got anything coming up that you could tease a little bit? Not necessarily give it away, but you got anything good that we're going to be seeing coming out pretty soon?
The ones that I'm working on right now are a couple books from the Melzonian Arts Council, and one of them is Fever Swamp, which was kickstarted recently, and the Crypts of Endormancy, which are both small adventures. Crypts is a small dungeon, and Fever Swamp is a small hex crawl. It's really interesting. That book's doing something interesting with taking a hex crawl, which is usually like a big book, and really condensing it down to a very small page count, with a lot of interesting stuff in it.
Oh, very interesting. I'm gonna keep my eyes out for that. I'm trying to do I'm in a pre-hex crawl campaign right now.
Okay.
Getting ready to do a real hex crawl, but I wanted to test some things out first. So I'm definitely always interested in seeing how other people did their hex crawls or more rules that I might be able to use in mine. So that's awesome. Can't wait to see it then.
Do you have any favorite books off the top of your head that you like? Just this is something that everybody should have in their library if they run D&D.
Let me see if I can pull a couple out here. I have some on the shelf. Vornheim's definitely one of those.
Yeah.
If you're gonna run a city campaign, then you need Vornheim, because it covers pretty much all of the mechanics you would need to make adventuring there interesting. Hot Springs Island is you kind of see the light reflecting off of the cool little skull there. That's a island hex crawl with a lot of dense factions and monsters and so on. Maze of the Blue Medusa.
Oh yeah.
It's a really artsy fartsy weird dungeon that takes place in like another dimension. The physical print of that is sold out, but I think they're planning to reprint it, possibly through Lamentations of the Flame Princess, but you can get the PDF still. Those are some of the really big ones. Oh, in terms of monster manuals, you have to get Fire on the Velvet Horizon and not Bornheim, Veins of the Earth. So these books are both written
thick.
by so Veins of the Earth is a book that makes the Underdark usable.
Oh.
So it's like Bornheim. It's Bornheim for the Underdark, except that it's this thick.
Yeah, okay.
You 50 new Underdark monsters. It gives you rules for randomly generating caves and cave systems and exploration rules, light rules. It's really, really good and really scary.
Yeah.
Stuart wrote this, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. So specifically, I guess I want to talk about Hot Springs Island because I just bought it and I just finished reading through it. And you had a tweet out where somebody was talking about like running a hex crawl or something. And these people were saying like, oh, run Tomb of Annihilation. And you were like, don't run Tomb of Annihilation, buy Hot Springs Island and run that instead. And now having read both, like I've read Tomb of Annihilation and I think it's a really quality product. Like they Wizards of the Coast makes decent products like for their adventure storylines. But Hot Springs Island was super interesting in that it's going to change every single time you play it because of the random roll tables. And it seems overly complicated at first, or maybe this was my perspective. Like Tomb of Annihilation is complex, but really it's like, okay, they have a point to get to. They have like this and this and this and this. Whereas Hot Springs Island, the players really decide which faction they want to follow. They decide which person they want to support. And through that support changes the whole storyline. So there's no, what's the word? I guess I want to say it's like open-ended in the sense that you get to discover and decide who wins. Like, how does Hot Springs Island finish? It's up to you.
Right. I think the authors referred to the island as a powder keg.
Yeah.
You just like touch one thing and then everything just spirals out of control because everything's so interconnected.
And it's interesting playing a game like that where I read the whole book and now I kind of understand the factions and I understand all this other stuff. And I guess that's a true hex crawl because now that I understand, now Jordan the DM understands all of this stuff and I sit down and I play through this game, like it's actually easier to run than something like Tomb of Annihilation, I would say. There's just that, like, you read through the whole adventure probably twice and you'll get everything you need to get out of it. And then it's random roll tables and it's whatever. I feel like I had a question in there somewhere, but now I'm just gushing about Hot Springs Island. So,
well, like the main downside of Hot Springs Island, and most people point this out, is that whenever you go to a new location, especially to like a dungeon or one of the more complex ones, you're supposed to roll all of the encounters for it.
Yeah. Which
can take a while. And then also it's system neutral, so he doesn't give you any stats for anything. However, both of those problems are solved. So if you go to my review on my channel and look in the description, there are now random roll generators online, where if you go to like some huge dungeon, you click one button and boom, it generates everything that's in it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Written all of the stats for all the monsters for 5th edition or for old school role-playing games. So no excuses anymore. All that stuff is done.
Just have your tablet open at your at the table and you can just, or roll it ahead of time. Like if you know that they're going to go to X, Y, and Z, I guess. So.
And the easier you make it for DMs, the more we'll get of those out there to DM games. So that's always good. We did have a question from chat that I thought was pretty good. Talking about Maze Rats. How long did it take you from first getting the idea for Maze Rats to actually publishing the product?
It's really hard to say. It's really hard to say because I am unbelievably fickle in terms of my game design. So Maze Rats was part of an ongoing project to write a RPG for the 5th grade kids that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
And most of my gaming is done in after school clubs where I run games for them. And I was just like trying different systems out because you can teach them 5th edition, but it's just too slow. It takes too long, especially when you have like not a lot of time to run games. So I was just trying out different things, and I started writing a role-playing game for them, and it went through lots of iterations. So maybe a year, depending on how many iterations you want to count, before I actually put it out. Yeah.
Nice. Just one little quick follow-up. They're asking, is there going to be a 2nd edition of Maze Rats?
Doesn't look like it. I can't think of, I mean, Maze Rats, the rules for Maze Rats are 1 page long. So it's like a 2nd edition would be like, I would tweak 1 or 2 rules. So it doesn't seem like it's really worth it. Most of the value in the game is I wrote 80 random tables, each of which has 36 entries on it. And you can use those to generate randomized monsters, random treasure, random wildernesses, dungeons, cities, NPCs, magic spells, everything that you would need, and with a lot of variety. So you can basically roll that stuff on the fly if you need to, or it can help you do a lot of prep. Folds together into like a pamphlet that you can print out on your computer. So you can just print it out at home, staple it, and boom, you have the book, and you can just hand it out to people. So I designed it that way so I could just give it to all my kids. Nice. So I think that's the main utility that it has.
It's kind of like Nate from WASD is doing a lot of content now about having D&D or role-playing games in the classroom and using that as a teaching tool for the young people that he's working with. He's also a teacher too, and they can so that's cool. You know, another person that's using that to teach the younger generation the game for other skills, but also just to have fun, you know, in a fantasy world and such. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting the conceptions people have about teaching kids D&D, because the assumption that I generally see is that you want to make it very easy and you want to go easy on them, and they should have a ton of agency and they shouldn't ever die, which is the opposite of how I run it for kids. Right? In my games, you have very low hit points. It's very hard to survive, and they die constantly. And that makes the game so much better. They don't care. They love it. And whenever they get a new level, it's that OSR feeling of I earned that level. That level is mine because, you know, I was smart enough to get to that point and didn't die. So like I would run a campaign, and there would be like, there was this one girl at the end who had never died once. And she was at like level 6, and everyone else was at level 2 because they just died over and over. And she had like a tremendous feeling of accomplishment because of that.
Adversity builds character for sure. You have to do that.
On the flip side, if that level 6 girl loses her character, is that crushing? Have you seen that happen? Or
if you die, you die. Though I'm very clear on what the stakes are with them. Like there's no like just random death. That's another OSR principle, is that the level of the more dangerous something is, generally the more obvious it should be. Death, if there's a situation that's really lethal, it should be pretty obviously lethal. So players can choose to circumvent it or find an alternate solution. Or
Okay, interesting.
So that say they only die by their own mistakes. It's really
that's what you not because clearly their fault.
Yeah, it's not the DM vendetta or there was no way you were getting out of this trap. The trap was made to kill you, like the old school. Some of them old school dungeons where, you know, just there was nothing you could do. You were just going to die type thing.
Now, you also do map making on your channel. Go ahead.
It looked like you started that way, right? Isn't that how your channel kind of started?
Yeah. It originally started when I started teaching. I was in a really long meeting, like some training seminar that went on for like 6 hours. So to stay sane, I was in the back just like doodling a map, because I've done that since I was a kid. I just always just loved doing that. And I posted it on Reddit, and it kind of blew up on Reddit. Everyone really liked it, and people asked me how I drew it. So I'm like, because I was teaching with Andrew Armstrong from Dawn's Forge Cast. He was at the same school as me. I knew he had a YouTube channel, so I'm like, hey, I'll make one too, and just show people how to draw these maps. And it kind of went off from there.
Oh, interesting. Do you have any suggestions for how to, well, I guess just doodling and stuff, but like you said, you've been drawing maps for a long time. Like, what got you, have you been doing commissions? Like, are you that involved in it, or is it still just like a doodling hobby?
I occasionally do commissions. I don't do them as much anymore, but I'm open to commissions if people want to commission me to do something. I've just been doing it as a kid from, I guess, reading Lord of the Rings. And just wanting to draw a map like that. I had a wide group of friends who are all super nerds, and we didn't play RPGs, but we were really into fantasy fiction. And we had this gigantic collaborative fantasy world that we built up over the course of years. And we were all drawing the maps. I mean, this map that was like 4 pages by 3 pages, like all taped together, that we put up on a wall, slowly evolved into, there's multiple iterations of it over the years. So yeah, that was something I've just done forever.
I want to play in that world now. That sounds awesome.
I've thought about that many times, but I don't know where the map is. I think it's gone somewhere.
Have you created your own fantasy world and drawn maps for it and stuff?
I have like one specific world at the moment. I've been thinking a lot more about that, though, about developing a really fleshed out like campaign setting to run like the 5th graders through more consistently. But I tend to run modules, or I tend to run dungeons because my sessions are usually fairly short.
Okay, interesting.
And when you say short, that could mean anything to anybody. Are you talking like a 2 or 3 hour session? Are you talking about a 4? What are you talking? I'm not hearing you.
Oh, your mic cut out a little bit. Go ahead.
1 hour.
Oh. 1 hour session. Okay, so that is short. To me, short would have been 2 hours. Okay, all right.
For school club, so it's only like an hour long. So you have to have it very, densely packed with interesting stuff. So you have to get to it right away. That usually means a dungeon, because like you have interesting decisions right off the bat.
Do you ever have any kid, now that I'm just thinking about kids in D&D, where they get combative with each other? Like, I want this and you want that, and try to kill one another or something like that, or I trip so-and-so's character.
That's pretty much constant. Like when you're running with 5th graders, a large percentage of the game is crowd control. I usually just disallow that sort of thing. I'm just like, just from a metagame point of view, like you're not allowed to interfere with each other. We just move past it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they spend the whole hour just like trying to stab each other.
Yeah.
Because they think it's hilarious.
Typical kids.
Yeah, you got to go at them like for Left 4 Dead. That if you don't have your group, you're gonna die. So you better use teamwork.
Yeah, I reinforce that a lot. They're like, I don't want to go with those guys. I want to go this way, and he just wanders off on his own and dies. It's like.
Well, aside from your 5th graders that you're running games for, are you in any games? Are you running any games right now? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're playing?
That's it for my role playing right now. I've occasionally played in some online games with some G+ people. I was in like a play test for Maze of Blue Medusa and a couple other games. That was a while back. I'm probably going to be getting into a real world campaign fairly soon. I know some people who are running a real world game that I want to ingratiate myself with and get into that. Because it's been a long time since I've been a player for kids for so long before you want some adults to play with.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And you mean like at a table when you say real world, right?
At an actual table. That's how I
Yeah,
play.
You want to sit down, have that. That's what Jordan's always. I'm the online player. I'm always gathering the people to come and play with Roll20 or any of the virtual tabletops, gathering people from all over. Jordan's at the table, and we have those different perspectives. And I'd like the table. I just can't find enough people to bring them to the table every week that are going to show up every week.
Yeah, and apparently I have the same problem, as I don't end up playing D&D on a consistent basis because everyone's so busy. But yeah, it happens. But I
played 4 games last week, so
yeah. I love sitting at the table, and you just have your beverage and you have your friends, and the conversation can flow so easily away from the game to just what we're doing in real life, and then it flows back to like, oh yeah, we got to focus at the game, and that's fun for me. Like, I really enjoy that. My being on playing over the internet, and I guess the only games that I've played over the internet have been streaming games, and then you have the weight on your shoulders of like, this has to be interesting because you're streaming, and you can't just like, oh, let me tell you about this time my dog was funny. So you kind of have to like focus on that. But I don't know. I need to run a game for Sir Lucian, and maybe for you too, since you want to play, and see about how I can use these Roll20 like things, because I've never really touched on running online games. It's intimidating me, I guess. Roll20 intimidates me, but it shouldn't.
Yeah. We always have a virtual seat open for you, Ben, if you want to come join a game. I'm running one-shots or campaigns all the time, so you definitely have, if you want to find a place to play, you've got one.
Usually, I know Roll20 can be fairly intimidating. I haven't tried to actually DM anything on that. I usually just use Hangouts because OSR games typically don't really need like miniatures or like an exact layout, although it can help. So many tools on Roll20. I know Cody Lewis is sort of the expert on that, but
yeah,
he was. I think he's moved to Fantasy Grounds now. He seems to be a big Fantasy Grounds guy.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. Roll20. That's how I found Roll20, was through Cody, and then jumped on it because it just seemed like it was one I could pick up and do. And I like using it now with the games. But you are right. You can do any gaming if you're going to do Theater of the Mind with the map and the description of the location. Works on any. You can Google Hangouts, Skype, all that kind of stuff. I think the other ones come in handy if you really want miniature play or more tactical combat, but it will slow combat down too. So it's going to make those combats feel a little longer. Like we went 6 rounds just the other night, and it was at least an hour battle to get through 6 rounds, just because everybody's being very careful about how they're counting their squares and moving around and thinking like it's a chess game. But it's fun for them, so they're having a good time. But just different ways to think about it. But I love it. Dynamic lighting, when I throw them in a dungeon and it only lights up what their character can actually see as they move from one corridor to the next, and then they can't see what's behind them anymore, is fantastic.
Cool. I really like that.
Speaking of then games, what are you running? What did you do this week in games, Mr. Lucian?
Oh, so for me, super busy week. So we ran our Monday night Storm King's Thunder game, which is my chance to run a full Wizards of the Coast product that a bunch of friends wanted to play. So we're doing Storm King's Thunder. We're in chapter 5-ish at this point, halfway through the module, and they got an airship that they crashed. So the episode went pretty good. You know how you have an investigative episode where everybody's asking a lot of questions, they're trying to figure out something, so it could be slow if you're just watching it, or that there's not a lot of action happening. But then at the very end, their airship gets attacked and it crash lands. So we have this big airship down moment in the wintry Norse of the Spine of the World mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So you can think of all those movies about where a plane crashes in the wintry snow and now all of a sudden they're stranded, kind of thing. So they're all super worried about it for next Monday's game. So that was pretty good, but a pretty standard. They were looking around for something. They finally found it. They stayed a little too long. Some creatures came to mess with them, kind of session. So it was pretty fun. Tuesday night got rescheduled. We had one player that couldn't make it, had a flat tire. So that's the one campaign where if somebody can't make it, we don't go. Like the other ones, we'll play if somebody's not there and we'll just kind of wing it. But this is the one campaign where if one person doesn't make it, then we just reschedule. So that one's been moved again. That was a Tomb of Annihilation game that I'm playing in. Then Wednesday night happened. Now, Wednesday night was a fantastic game. I did Crypts of Kelemvor, which if you were at...
Oh, that's right.
If you read the Dragon Plus magazine, issue 18 that came out this month... I see my dog going by in the background here.
Yeah, I think mine ran back and forth too. So
there was a developer from the Neverwinter MMORPG built a 5th edition one-off kind of adventure, and I thought, oh, what a cool thing to do. I'm going to play it to test it out and see how it goes. And I went and I got one of our subscribers to the channel. I offered to anybody that subscribed to the channel during our show that they could jump into the game, and we had Indoor Adventure picked up on that. We had a brand new player from here in town. She went in on it, and then we brought in Graybeard, who's a regular on most of all my shows, and they gelled fantastically. They got into their characters. They had voices. They've been talking in Discord for 2 weeks about their backgrounds and how they know each other, and they are going full bore on this game that we played for like 3 hours, and they spent more time in Discord before that just talking about characters. So I love it when the players are so into their own characters.
Yeah.
It just makes the game so much more fun. And so that was really good. It's a dungeon delve, go straight into the crypts. They fought some zombies, had the epic D&D 5e zombie thing right now where they would get the thing down to 0, it would fall down, but it kept making the Constitution save. So these zombies kept coming back to 1 point, rising up, fighting. The battle took forever, but they finally made it through it. They went through a white like it was nothing, just creamed right through it, and now they're going to finish out. The one shot is turning into, Jordan will recognize this, a 2-shot, because I can never get a 1-shot in one session. It just never works out that way, so I got to do a 2-shot. So that was really good. The adventure is good. I've got the map all in Roll20. They're moving around. The dynamic lighting's fantastic. We got music that atmospheric plays to it, and they were all in. They were all in, like voices and everything. So it was really good adventure. Had a really good time. We're gonna play again on Wednesday to finish it out. Thursday's my Borderlands, which I keep calling my pre-hex crawl game. It's where I'm testing out weird rules, like survival rules, like if they have to roll on their rations. Here's one that they do with their, and every day they have a ration in their pack has the chance that it might spoil. So when they roll a ration in the morning, they have to roll higher than the number of days they've been out in the wilderness. So if it's like day 5, they roll a D20. If they roll under 5, the ration they pulled out was rotted. They have to pick out another one, right? So they keep rolling really low. They keep running through rations like crazy. It's a big funny thing for them. So I'm trying out all these weird rules to make it a little more survival, a little more open world. And the session went fantastic. They cleared out a temple. They met a deity of a lost civilization, and there was a big fight. I did the big reveal. You know how I've seen it on like DM suggestions where they say bring your super big bad guy for your campaign in early, like when they're first level or something, when there's no possible way they can beat them, just to introduce this super powerful character so that they can see, oh my god, this 7th level sorcerer walks in, you guys are first level, there's nothing you can do about this guy, but eventually you're going to get there and you're going to defeat that guy. So I brought that guy in, the evil druid we've been talking about, came in, wrapped them all up, did this big monologue, the supervillain monologue, and then they escaped, and now they know who their big bad guy is, but he's super tough, so they have to figure out what they're going to do about it. And it's an evil druid. I haven't done a campaign where the evil druid was the big bad guy, so I think that's going to be fun. And then, so that was all those games that I did, which was super funny. And then Graybeard kind of explained all of last week's gaming was Monday night was the game where you can't wait to see how it all turns out, even though maybe an individual session or two may not be interesting, but you're so hooked into where it's going to go at the end, you keep watching. So that was my Monday night game. Wednesday night was full on anime, like crazy characters. The party is a black dragon, dragonborn, a Yuan Ti with tail.
Oh, nice.
Yuan Ti, and then a kobold. So it's like Monsters for Hire almost for those guys. Great voices and everything. So that's like an anime show. And then he was describing our Borderlands game, which is going really good because they were really into the role-playing part of it. That was like Game of Thrones. So he was like, that's what he got to play. So it was like really good because he's in all 3 of them. So that was my super busy week. And foreshadow for tomorrow, I have an interview with CJ from Don't Stop Thinking, who runs a D&D YouTube channel also, about helping people get into D&D, playing D&D, helping DMs out, and that kind of stuff too. So super busy week. This next week's gonna be the same. But how was Jordan's week in D&D?
Well, before I do that, I wanted to ask you a couple questions. That Kelemvor module, is that something that they made in the game? Like, is it a crypt to explore in the game that they just converted over for 5th edition? Is that kind of the idea?
I believe, yeah. In the description of the module, it said that this is a quest that happens in their game and converted to work as a standalone D&D 5e adventure.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely that way. And there's some MMO elements to it because like you have to go around and you have to light some braziers to relight a bunch of them, which is a very MMORPG kind of thing to do. You have to touch these things in the area, and then you have to do this one other thing, and that finally opens the door that you need to get through kind of thing. So this module kind of follows that same thing, and it is based loosely on one of their adventures that is in the game.
Okay, cool. And then my second question is, where did you come up with that spoiled rations idea? Or was that just something...
I was trying to figure out...
Because that's clever.
Here's
I like
what
that.
Is. Here's what it is. And it probably Ben is going to be able to say, well, you should just do this. Because here's what my problem was. I want to run a hex crawl, right? And so a hex crawl in my mind is the players go out, they do something, they come back to town. All in one session. I don't want any more sessions where we're out and then we have to cut the game off and come back and pick up again out there. I want it to go out, do stuff, come back every time. And to allow, if we have different players, that they can jump in because we're at town again. We go out, we come back. Now different players could do something. The whole hex crawl thing. I was trying to figure out how do I make them come back to town. My players would not come back to town. There was nothing they needed in town. So they would just stay out forever, and it was hard for me to work in, oh, hey, we have a new person that's going to play again. How do they get to the group that's out there? So to me, I'm really wanted to come up with a way that rations were hard to find, and they have not been able to use their survival skills very hard. I made that very hard for them to find enough food to feed the whole group as a way to force them back to town.
Okay.
And so I'm just trying it out. I know it's not necessarily working out the way I want it to, but it's like one step of it.
What's the downside for running out of food or eating spoiled food? Is it just exhaustion levels or?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It starts with a couple of exhaustion levels, but then it goes into poison levels. And if you get poisoned, that's way worse than just exhaustion, because all of a sudden you have disadvantage on a bunch of stuff if you're poisoned. So if it goes a couple levels in, then all of a sudden you get the poison condition for 5th edition, and that's bad news at that point.
And then a good question from chat: how did you get it all into Roll20? Or is this Roll20 compliant?
Yeah, well, it's just I created a guide or a sheet that showed the players what the rules were, and then in the morning when they wake up is when we decided we would do the ration roll, and that's when they make their rolls. So when in the morning at camp, they all make their rolls.
Okay.
And they all know that part. And the other rule I did was, another thing to try to get them to go back to camp was, if they roll a 1, so a fumble, instead of doing a fumble, I have it -1 from the weapon, as if it's been damaged in some way. And now it requires a blacksmith or a bowyer or somebody to fix that to bring that thing back up to normal level. As again to say, okay, if they get a couple of 1s and all of a sudden their axe is -2, they might be thinking, man, we need to get back to the blacksmith because I don't want to keep running around with my -2 axe out here type thing. So I was looking for little things that would force them to say, we want to go out, do something, and come back, not just go out and stay out forever for months and months and months.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I saw Ben nodding. He's like, oh yeah, minus to your weapons.
Yeah, well, that's not like a standard rule in OSR stuff, but like I really like the idea of weapon degradation over time and weapon breakage and armor breakage and stuff. So like what I've been tinkering with is giving weapons like a quality rating, like usually around 3, and then armor has a quality rating as well, like going up to maybe 7 for like really good armor. And then you can like change the prices of weapons based on what the quality is. But just like you were saying, if you like attack with a weapon and you roll a 1, you just like mark off a quality box, and then when they all run out, the weapon breaks.
Yeah, because I wanted that too.
Go down.
Yeah, I wanted the idea that something could break in their hand.
Would
right. Or with armor too. So like if someone attacks you and rolls a 20, it marks off a box on your armor.
Yeah, that's what I did too. If they get a critical hit against them, their armor, they get a -1 AC. It's broken a plate or it's broken a strap, and now it goes down by -1, or it breaks the shield if it happens to be a shield. So I did put that in. If the creature gets a crit against them, their AC starts to go down.
So you're in your case solution, it's almost you just wear the armor till you get a better benefit from not wearing the armor,
right? Or you go back to town and you have the blacksmith fix everything,
which is
for
money and stuff. I like that. Yeah.
Well, and I needed money sinks, right? Because there's no good D&D money sink at a certain point. Is the real problem.
Here's what I'm doing. Like I'm trying to find a way to make money sinks as well, and I'm trying to find a way to do it with spells actually. So right now, what I'm tinkering with is a system to run old school games. Like it's really compatible with it, but in which there aren't any classes and everyone can kind of do everything. So what I want to do with Magic is I want to make Magic completely scroll based. Spell book, and you have to copy it onto a scroll before you cast it. So everyone uses scrolls now, and that's a way to because like you want to write a 9th level spell, it costs a ton of money because like the expenses is more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, money sinks, because I want to be able to put the old school style of money hoard that you used to get. You would go into a dungeon and come out with a couple thousand gold pieces would be no big deal. Whereas in fifth edition, it doesn't feel that way as much from the adventures I've been running. And then, okay, so your characters have 10,000 gold. What are they going to spend it on at this point? I mean, they need stuff to be able to spend it on. So that was just the idea of forcing that to help run the game.
Do you have any magic weapons in your game, Lucian, that's like do the magic weapons have quality loss, or is that the fact that they're magic they don't have quality loss? Or
that was the thing. That was the benefit of a magic item, that it's not affected by those two rules that I did. So a magic item resists, because they're more durable, and the enchantment resists that effect to it.
So then finding those is even more.
Because I didn't want to break
amazing.
somebody's like +5 flame sword or something. You know, it just dies and goes away. But maybe I will. Maybe I'll be that mean at some point. I'm pretty stingy. I read this thing where they said you could play D&D 5e with no magic items, and the game is balanced without any magic items at all. If your character never got a single one, the game can still play. Your character can still play with all the abilities they're given. And so I played a pretty stingy magic item thing so far. So I probably should try a high magic one to see how it goes. But I've been pretty stingy with magic stuff.
It's interesting. I've seen more and more people talk about like quality degradation in weapons and armor, and I think what's causing it is Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Oh, the
definitely.
video game?
Yeah. Everyone's playing Zelda, in which all of your weapons and armor break over time, so you have to constantly get new stuff and try out different strategies. I think that's influencing a lot of people.
And MMOs in general, is like lots of games have been kind of doing some of those things, and Zelda's super popular. And yeah, I think our RPG games are starting to benefit from some of the things that are done in computer games that are really fun, right? And I think that's where computer games got really big over 80s and 90s, because RPGs were kind of fun, but then MMOs gave you that instant satisfaction, gave you that, oh, I don't have a group, I can still go out and play, so maybe I'll just go play Skyrim, or I'll go play these other things because I don't have a D&D group. And now I think it's coming back around again, where they're saying, wait, these RPGs are really fun. They're starting to have some of those cool get into the game action fast mechanics. They can compete with that computer game, you know, and the community grows. It means it's easier to find a game to be in, where if the community is really small, it's hard to find people to play with. So now you're left back, oh, well, I'm going to play Baldur's Gate, or I'm going to go play Skyrim, or I'm going to play World of Warcraft, because it's RPG at least as much as I can get, you know. So, but I think because the community's growing now again, I think RPG tabletops is coming back.
It's a full circle. Like all of the early video games were, almost all of them were based on D&D. Basically set the standard for what video games were like the idea of having levels and experience points and having a player character, and all of this stuff is like D&D invented it, and now it's coming back.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Boy, we're almost at time, I guess, but I'll really quickly talk about games that I played, because I actually played D&D this week, which was crazy.
You mean you ran D&D?
Or I ran D&D, yes.
There you go.
I ran D&D. And really, my session was just a big lore dump. So they met up with some other travelers in the desert, and this was like their first kind of like hint at like, oh, there's civilization. And so they were saying, we're going to split up, and you can either go back to town, or you can go talk to these Yuan-ti that I'm going to go talk to. And they decided to go with the guy and talk to the Yuan-ti. But either way, it was going to be this like travel montage of them asking questions. And then I was rolling on some random tables, but nothing exciting happened. So I just kind of forgo that and allowed them to ask a bunch of questions on their travel. But they discovered that there is another adventuring group called Indiegogo, run by two people named Indy and Gogo. And they're sorceress twins that are doing an excavation site, and they're trying to dig up an inverted pyramid. So there's this pyramid that's inverted in the desert, buried under the sand, and they're digging it up, and that's going to be like the next group, or the next dungeon for my players to kind of explore. It's going to be this inverted pyramid where they start at the top, and their goal is to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And I should just show these. Kind of bent, but I made, let me move this so I can actually see myself. So I made this, so like this is the base of the pyramid, and then it gets smaller and smaller until finally they get to the bottom of it. And that was just a kind of a fun, like I went to Donjon or Donjon, which is like a dungeon, and I made a video about it, but like it's like you can create these dungeons, and so I kind of just made a bigger dungeon and then a smaller one and smaller one. So I'm really excited that when we start playing it, if they're gonna like map out the area, I can be like, you're here, and then reveal that and kind of like go down. But before then, they ran into a bunch of Yuan-ti, and they're gonna have to either negotiate or fight these Yuan-ti. We'll see what happens. But they're not nice people. So yeah. And that was really fun. It's been a month, maybe 5 weeks since I played D&D with my group or ran D&D for my group. And I just really miss it. And you were kind of linking it back around. You were talking about running a high magic or low magic, like magic item things. I definitely have high magic because I think magic items are fun. So I started giving it out, but I'm noticing now that I should not have been doing that. Like my players are so overpowered and have so many like little tricks now that it really bothers me that I throw monsters at them and they're just kind of like, oh, let's just like wipe the board. Like an encounter that should be deadly, like 100% should be deadly. They have little to no problems because of their magic items and all the tricks they have. But that being said, they're having fun. So, kind of what it comes down to. I just wish I could challenge them a little bit more.
Yeah, it works for them.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, one of the ideas I had thought about was playing a game where there are no character levels. You are basically the farmer or the bartender or whatever it is. You get no levels, but you pick up the dropped magic item of a party, an adventure party that had died or perished, and you've decided to take up their cause. The only thing that allows you to become better is to find better magic items. There's no leveling up.
Yeah.
There's no, I learned this cool new tornado sword swing. None of that. It's, you better go find a +4 sword if you want to hit better than when you were with a +3 sword. And I wonder if that would be fun for players, that it's all gear reliant. Like it's not person reliant. You are a normal person at all times. You're 8s all across the board until these items make you something different. I thought that might be an interesting short campaign. Maybe not a super long campaign, but an interesting short campaign to play.
That's awesome.
Two people do play games like that long term. Like I know Traveler is like that. And in Traveler, you're just like a guy in space. And that's it. Like there is no leveling. If you want to get better at your skills, you have to train it in real time. Like you want to be a better pilot, get ready to spend 2 years in flight academy.
Nice.
That sort of thing. So it's all about like getting better gear, upgrading your spaceship,
Yeah.
building your reputation and stuff like that. That's how you get better.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm thinking about it.
Makes it easy to die if your hit points don't go up. Unless the whole game
makes
doesn't
it a
have
deadly game the whole time.
Say what?
Yeah, so you better get good AC. You better get a magic item that gives you a hit point buffer.
I guess
those kinds of things, because you might just have 10 hit points the whole time you're playing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our show. But before we go, Mr. Ben, Mr. Questing Beast, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/questingbeast, or on Twitter at Benjamilt is my Twitter handle, or on Patreon, patreon.com/questingbeast.
And what do you have a lot of rewards for your Patreon, don't you? Like what kind of?
Yeah, so I recently switched it so that all patrons get all rewards.
Nice.
So no matter what you pledge, you get all the rewards, which is I have a Discord set up where we talk about old school role-playing games. When I put out PDFs and rules play tests and things like that, you get those for free. So you can check those out ahead of time. And I do monthly private live shows with just my patrons.
Oh, that's
where we
really
do
cool.
map making or game design or whatever, and we just talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Please check out all of those awesome links because you have a great YouTube channel. We're like neck and neck now in subscribers. I don't know if you knew that. Like
challenge thrown down.
I watch it. I'm just like, oh, he's like 100 away. Like he's creeping up on me so quick. And so
he's running outside getting signatures on paper. Just come on, just YouTube right here. Just click it.
It blew up. Like it took me 4 years to get to 10,000 views. It was really slow growth. And then over the last 3 months, I got 7,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was just, boom, all of a sudden. I don't know where it came from, but I'll take it.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. You should definitely check out his YouTube channel. Lots of great videos. Like I said, specifically like Vornheim or Hot Springs Island, like those videos are really in depth with the book, and you can decide if you want to buy it or not. And it sold me. Like I totally picked him up because of his videos. So yeah, you guys should check him out.
Yeah, they should sponsor your show. You're doing such a good job advertising.
Lamentations.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, little sponsors. Sir Lucian, where can people find you on the internet aside from right here on Twitch where people are watching it right now?
Right here all the time. Like if you're here, you know you found us, which is really good. But you can also find, if you miss anything, you can find me over on youtube.com/Sir Lucian, one word, Lucien. I know sometimes people use an AN, but it's IEN. I do Twitch shows Monday and now Wednesday. I should be streaming my Thursday show because it's so good, but those guys are just friends that weren't too sure about streaming gaming, so we'll work on them. And then we do a Saturday morning D&D show, which you're here for. Thanks for coming, because me and Jordan have a great time doing this every Saturday morning. And then I have a Sunday night show also that is typically touching on things that aren't D&D, so you can check that out at 9 p.m. Eastern here at the channel too. And then on Twitter, you can find me at Sir Lucian Gaming, because somebody already had Sir Lucian, so it's all one word, Sir Lucian Gaming. And those are all the places you can find me. And I'm going to Gen Con, so if you're going to be out at Gen Con, we can do a meetup or a hookup, and we can check you. I'm going to be playing games, running games, so you guys can swing by and hang out.
Yeah, for sure. And be sure, to check out your show tomorrow is called The Standard Array, and you have that special guest CJ from Don't Stop Thinking. So be sure to check that out, guys. It's going to be awesome. As for me, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know who I am, but there will be links in the doobly-doo to all of these guys, their channels, and their various things. And so thank you guys so much for coming out today and for watching the Saturday Morning D&D show. Ben, you were a fantastic guest. Thanks so much for being with us and answering a barrage of questions, I guess, as we touched on many of the aspects of the things that you do.
And maybe you'll come back. Hopefully this won't be the only time you come.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We should have you back.
Anytime.
Until then, guys, we will see you next Saturday for another edition of the Saturday Morning D&D show. Goodbye.